want to welcome everyone. I wasn't expecting a huge crowd on the 2nd of January, but you guys are busy. I don't know how long my voice will hold out. So I'll try not to talk any more than I need to. However, I want you to know how happy I am to be part of this chapter and how wonderful you ladies are. You've each touched my life in ways that I don't even understand sometimes. Our Regent, Sally Basson, is excused today. She had a doctor's appointment. Most of you know by now that she has breast cancer, and so she's dealing with that. So you may be stuck with me periodically off and on for a few months. Chris is doing a silent roll call, so we don't need to do that. Do you have anything to report or?
No.
We're good? Okay.
We had our last meeting at the home of Molly Morris for the Christmas party. We had a great turnout and a great time. That's really all we have done in the last 2 months.
Okay, well, we'll get to that.
Yes.
And this time we'll do our DAR ritual. Cindy is not here, so Rusty is going to take over as chaplain. We'll all stand. You've got cheat sheets on the table for those of you that are new, or those of you that are old. To perpetuate the memory and spirit of the men and women who achieved American independence, to promote the development of an enlightened public opinion, and to foster patriotic citizenship. These are the objectives of our society, daughters of the American Revolution.
Keep that which is committed to thy trust.
Yea, I have a goodly heritage.
Thou shalt remember all the way which thy God led thee.
Blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord.
Our Heavenly Father, we thank thee for thy guidance and for thy abiding presence in the life of our country. We thank thee for all of those yesterdays of our human race whose lessons and fulfillment have become a heritage to us. Continue, we pray, thy blessings upon this nation, that all who are parts of it may learn true nobility of manhood and womanhood. Grant us growth in understanding and increasing devotion to righteousness. Heavenly Father, we praise you today and thank you for allowing another year. We pray that you will help us make this year good enough to make our country come back to you. And we pray for what David and Pat Block have in store for us today. Please bless them and us as we spend time with each other and with you. In Jesus' precious name, amen.
And at this time, we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance led by Trustee Greer, followed by the American Creed by Rachel Bender, followed by the Preamble to the Constitution, led by Nancy Preston, former leader, and then the singing of the national anthem by Deborah Eckhart.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The American Creed. I believe
In the United States of America, as a government of the people, by the people, for the people, whose just powers are derived from the consent of the government, a democracy and a republic, a sovereign nation of many sovereign states, a perfect union, one and inseparable, established upon those principles of freedom, equality, justice, and humanity, for which American patriots sacrificed their lives and fortunes. I therefore believe it is my duty to my country to love it, to support its Constitution, to obey its laws, to respect its flag, and to defend it against all enemies.
preamble to the Constitution. We
The people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare,
and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, to ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
You know, be seated. Miss Baston has one. At this time, we'll have a Patriots Minute given by Linda Cradle.
I'd just like to say that my genealogy and finding my patriots have come from work from 1981, and I have multiple sources. And along with this, I have found a history book of my patriot and all of the ones that have come after him that are connected. And also on my Davis side, I have this book that was written in 1908. It's falling apart. I can't find anybody that does book bindings, but anyway, it has given me innumerable amount of history. So, my primary patriot is Israel Burnley, was the son of John Burnley and his second wife, Phoebe Davies. He was born in St. Paul's Parish in either New Kent County or Hanover. They split, and sometimes at the same time he was in one county but became another county. They changed between 1715 and 1725. There's a line of colonial people held in their old and English traditions. Since he was not the eldest son, he did not inherit his father's property, so he had to find an occupation. He became a fine cabinet maker, and some may still be around today. Well, that was written in 1945, so who knows where it is. He married in Hanover County, Virginia, and married Hannah Terrell, whose family is an old Virginia family from 1656. He married between 1748 and 1750, and they both died in Wilkes County, Georgia, which, if you know your history of that area, it's split into about 4 or 5 different counties. They moved with part of their family and friends in 1773, and he died in 1792. While living in Virginia, he acquired many acres of land in different parts of Virginia, in Bedford County, also including Louisiana, Bedford, and other counties in Virginia. They had 9 children, and their daughter Susanna married John Barksdale, who was another one of my patriots, who also fought in the Revolutionary War. Israel's participation was for his giving help during the war with supplies and other help. He traveled to South Carolina to help the troops there, as he did in Georgia and Wilkes County. He leaves his belongings to his children and his wife, and his will was dated November 14th, 1787, and I have that. His family line has produced very productive and service-minded offspring. They also married into well-respected and successful spouses. families like the Terrells, Barkdales, Bunkleys, Harveys, and Randolphs. Israel had noted siblings with them marrying into prosperous families of colonial Virginia. I have been fortunate to find and read and use several family written books by my family lines. One of these is the Burnleys, Barksdales, Trice, and Davis, on my mother's side of the family, and on my father's, who has some patriots who I have found a multitude of histories of their family. I have been fortunate since 1981 when I started the ancestry research of the Hitchcock and Little genealogies on my line, and the Cradle and Ivies on my late husband's, and some on my daughter-in-law's, her family, Mills and Pandora. It's my hope that now that I have put my real estate license inactive, that I will devote my time to going through hundreds and hundreds and thousands of data on my family. I have been concentrating on finding more about them personally to make them human and show how they lived. It has proved to be fun and informative. Just last November, I found a gold mine area that my great-great-grandfather Little owned in South Carolina. I am so proud to know of about 8 or 10 men who have served in some capacity in making this country that are my relatives. I am pleased to find so many and hope to get them all recognized for their devotion for our beginning of America.
Wow. At this time, we want to formally thank Vicki Dennis for standing for the wonderful food. I don't know if you had, do you want to tell a little bit about some of the special things you brought? Like the Yum Yum dip and
the Yum Yum dip, ever since I created it, everybody's been wanting the recipe because it goes really great as a dip, pretty much on anything. I just take a pound of ground beef and a roll of Jimmy Dean sausage, fried up with just a little bit of garlic salt and a little bit of pepper, and then I rinse it very well under hot water. And then I put it in the slow cooker with a can of drained Ratel tomatoes. I use the large can, and 2 blocks of cream cheese, and let it kick down. I've been doing some catering and other things with food. Somebody needs something special or cakes or something, I'll do those too. So I just really enjoy doing it. So yes, there is a lot of food. So, but whatever's not eaten, I'll take to the sheriff's office and they can have it up there.
a lot of her recipes are her own. For instance, this that I haven't gotten into yet. You want to tell them about that?
That is my apple cinnamon rolls. I've taken, actually, I cheat on those a little bit. Because I'll take my cinnamon rolls and press them down in a greased muffin pan. And then I'll put my, after I bake them, then I'll take and scoop at least 2 slices of apples per each one and add cinnamon to them and put them back in the oven for a little while longer. And I also do streusel topping on them. I make my own streusel topping. I don't like the box stuff, so I just make my own. Then I have the Hawaiian beanie weenies. Those I just use Hawaiian barbecue sauce and drained crushed pineapples, and I just heat it up, just keep it stirred so it doesn't start to burn on itself. So.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your food. We have already heard from Christy. The treasurer report, there's a couple of them on the table as Carol can't be here. You can look that over, and if everything looks good, anybody have any objections to any of it? She's not here to defend herself. She has done a wonderful job as treasurer. And at this time, we're going to turn the time over to Cherie, who is our registrar. And we have a special new member to take the oath today.
Okay, y'all, we are currently at 62 members. Unfortunately, we have 3 that we probably will lose this year, so that knocked us back down, but we got 3 in the oven. Working on Jesse's application, working on Miss Lucy's application, and got one at National that had a hiccup that we're waiting on the death certificate to come through with that one. So we are steady growing. So if y'all find out anybody else, because actually I'm kind of slow at the house right now, so start moving along. Yeah, really. We have had several difficult applications in the last couple of months, and there's this wonderful woman in Gainesville, Bonnie Schmidt, that has helped me. She specializes in problem children, and she digs stuff up. I have no idea how she does it, but she digs it up for me. So, but with that, I want to welcome our newest member, Caitlin Graves. She is definitely a junior member, y'all. The youngest junior members we have. Rachel, Rusty.
Or redhead.
You wanna come? You wanna come up here and we'll get Caitlin up here too. And in case y'all don't know, Caitlin has this wonderful lady beside her that as if you couldn't tell, is her mother. Come on over here. Get over there. Just start, right here. Start right there.
Okay. Please raise your right hand and respond in the affirmative to the following questions. Do you promise faithful loyalty to the bylaws of the National Society Daughters of the American Revolution, the Florida State Society Daughters of the American Revolution, and William Bertram Chapter, God being your helper?
Yes, ma'am.
Or I do. Do you promise faithfully to uphold the Constitution of the United States of America, God being your helper?
I do.
Do you promise that at all times you will promote the objectives of the National Society to the best of your ability, God being your helper?
I do.
May we pray. Our Heavenly Father, we lift our hearts in prayer, grateful for the blessings of liberty and for the privilege of membership in the National Society, Daughters of the American Revolution. We thank Thee for these new members, or this new member who is willing to give her time, thought, and talent in service to the National Society. May her service be pleasing to them and to Thee.
Oh, that's fine. Good.
Okay.
So with that, Caitlin, I want to give you our welcome back. I'm going to have your mother come up and pin you. That way if she sticks you.
It's not required.
Nicole, turn around a little bit. Oh.
Here we go.
I gotta take a picture.
She did that.
Hold your hand a little bit.
And with that, Caitlin's ancestor is Nathan Pryor. He was born in 1761 in London, England. He joined to fight the American Revolution as a private in January 1777 in Colonel James Gibson's company Militia 4 Battalion from Cumberland County, Pennsylvania. He also served under Captain James Gibson and John Taylor and Colonels Wilson and John Purdy as a private first class in the 7th Battalion from Cumberland County, Pennsylvania from January 1779 to August 24th, 1782. So he was in quite a while. He died in November 1792 in Washington County, Pennsylvania. And luckily, even though it's not the 5th, her number came through today, so this is your official number. But you won't get your paperwork until I get back home. Probably they'll have it in the system, and I'll give you a copy of the original paperwork. Normally, I give new members a pack of paper, but unfortunately, your mama got all that stuff. All you get is a copy of your birth certificate. Thanks. That connection to her.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well,
just a reminder to go to the DAR.org website. There's a spot for members only, and you can record your service hours. And that can be any service you do for a church, another organization. Like next month, we'll have our annual pet food drive. Anything you do with that would count. And then we want to thank everyone that brought donations for the Northeast Women's Veterans Pantry. She said that was well received and they really, really appreciated receiving that. And those of you that participated in the Veterans Day Parade, we've done a lot since our November meeting. And then a huge, 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 huge thank you to Molly. And for those that helped her, Carol and yeah, Cherie and the mayor.
Michelle. Invite the
we
mayor
were
and put her in the kitchen.
Yeah. She worked hard the whole time and served us. We appreciate that. Molly's home is
I
gorgeous.
did find out that you do have some problem children in this organization. I won't name that.
You won't name Jessie. And thank you very much. It was a really special evening, and
Well, it was great fun and I enjoyed having you. And I do want to thank Nicole.
Okay.
Number one, I saw your picture lying on the floor in the Victorian bedroom.
Sorry, Nicole.
I just thought I'd mention that.
she was trying to
We were
measure
trying to gauge
herself
how long the bed was
measuring
without
the
actually being in the
bed.
bed.
And also, I never did thank you and I didn't send you a thank you note, but I didn't find your lovely tray, your meat and cheese tray till a couple of days later, but that's all right. I had more friends than we all ate. So, thank you very much.
Well, thank you very, very much. That's something that we'll remember forever. We have a couple items of new business, one of which is Constitution 250 ideas. You want to ask them about that since it's your Peggy? And she's got her mouth full.
Let me take my glasses off so I can see you all. In a couple of years, we're having our 250th birthday for the nation. And it's a national thing, and they want each chapter to have events and it's actually an ongoing thing, events a couple times a year, something special, just to celebrate. You know, something that we can report back to national, and we really could use a committee chair and a committee to take care of that. So
not all nod your head yes. Some ideas that some other chapters have done. We just had the Boston Tea Party. The revolution didn't just happen overnight. It led up to a series of events. And so for the next couple of years, we'll be going through that timeline, and there'll be different activities or things to remember about that. One cute idea that one chapter did, they just had a tea party for the Boston Tea Party thing.
No, it's not. I was gonna suggest that.
But we missed that. So on to try to figure out something else. And so as you're looking around or thinking of things, if you come up with something, mention it to Sally or to someone else. It can be as simple as having a George Washington birthday party at the school. If the schools, you know, or some of the private schools probably are a little more receptive to that. If you're involved in a churchery school or whatever, reach out to them and see if that's something they would be interested in. That's just next month. So we would have to get right on it. But anything that you can think of. And there are scholarship grants available to chapters to fund that. So if you come up with an idea, holler. The other thing, Jessie, problem child, Rachel and Deborah and I went to, why were we there? We went to Green Cove Springs for something.
We went,
Oh, we went to escape room. Okay, forget that.
well, we stopped at the Christmas tree display in
and we
Greenville.
stopped to see the Christmas trees. And we had a discussion as we were there. Wouldn't it be great if we had a DAR Christmas tree next year?
Yes.
And it would be something that would be relatively easy to do, but it could promote DAR and if that's something, I don't know if we need to vote on it or, I don't know.
We've done it in the past. We didn't vote.
At Green Cove?
Okay.
No, we didn't
Oh.
here.
Oh, okay.
Where here?
She could do it at the Beck Automotive.
We looked at that and it costs money to enter it, plus the decorations, everything, so, we decided against that,
But if we're planning ahead, we could also have a Christmas ornament making for the tree as one of our meetings leading up to it.
Oh, that would be good.
Would you like the Victorian style ornaments for it?
I've seen this going back.
May I say something? I'm not part of this group, but I was a member of DAR in Flagler County. And I created their Christmas tree for the library. And I made each one of the Patriots an ornament. It's very simple. It was fun to do. I got a couple ladies together and Mod Podge and, clip art off of, the internet. We created an ornament for each one of the Patriots in the group. In addition to that, I don't know how many people you have that crochet, but we crocheted garland. You can crochet a popcorn garland. It's on YouTube that is just precious. And everybody just took a skein of this cotton yarn home and just crocheted while they were watching TV, popcorn balls, and then, or just the little popcorn kernels. And then we strung them on the tree to make it look a little bit more like it might have been, even though at that time they weren't really doing a lot of Christmas trees. But the ornaments were just really nice. So some of the ladies had pictures. I have a picture of my Patriot. So if you had a picture, they just sent it to me. I printed it off and put it on the thing and put some little gold braid around it, and it just turned out really good. So just a suggestion. And it worked out really well.
Because a lot of the trees were memorial trees for a specific person, but this would be a memorial for Patriots. Well, it sounds like everybody's in agreement. Is there somebody that objects to that? Okay, then I think without a vote, we say yes.
Yes.
Too, if anybody goes on vacation, it's really interesting to go to the battlefields of this. I've been to Yorktown and at the I'll get my thoughts together. Anyway, we went to, and I have a card for the National Park Service, that's what I'm thinking of, the National Park Service there, and they've got a CD or DVD that you can play, and you can go around and follow it all the way around. It's very interesting. And we went out on the York River and went down the boat, and I even helped put the sails up and take it down and drive it. So, I mean, it's a fun trip if you ever, and that's of course where the war ended.
I used to live near the Saratoga battlefield, and the national parks are amazing. Those rangers, you think, oh, they're just rangers. Most of them are historians, and they have a wealth of knowledge in their little brains. And books, amazing books. We found my husband's however many great-grandfather who was at the Battle of Saratoga, and he was injured, and they have all the records, and in his hospital thing was signed by his commanding officer, who was
George Washington.
No. I wish. The guy that betrayed us.
Benedict Arnold.
It was signed by him. So it's amazing what you might be able to find at parks and things, and that's a really good reminder. Next month, our program will not be a particular person, but it's going to be us. And it's February, so it's for the love of history, particularly the love of family history. if you have something that you would like to bring that is special to you or your family.
Need to bring Valentine's.
Like
I should have waited.
you just showed her Gladys. Gladys has a beautiful Valentine, which I hope that she will bring that. You won't have a long time to talk about it, just, short, but we'll get to know each other a little bit better and share the love that we have for our ancestors. Also, it's the February pet food drive, so they're not here. That's why they're there. So remember to bring. Oh, wanted to ask a question. We have donated to the county shelter. We've donated to SAFE. We've donated to I can't remember his last name, that shelter group that they have. Is there a different place, or should we go ahead and just donate to SAFE or the county shelter again?
Jenny does the ARC program that they save animals and with the Crescent City Kennel. So I don't know if that's something you want to try down.
My husband was on that board.
Yeah, so they do an awful lot.
That'll get us out of Palatka.
Yep.
Okay, that's a good idea.
We also had Silver Spring at Fords. And excellent program.
They have the horses.
And they do the retreats. And I know for another group, they've done a weekend retreat for that group, and they were able to about spend a weekend. You don't have to cook, you don't have to clean. You go out, you ride horses, you can fish, you can hike. During the summer, they have the swimming programs. They've got Horse 101 for kids that's never read before. They also had blacksmithing.
Yeah, we had a spokesperson come in and talk to us about
Dan and Rachel.
Yeah, which you mainly talk about the horses. But, yeah, that's a good reminder.
Where was that?
It's
Melrose.
Melrose, kind of like Melrose Keystone.
Yeah.
You know what? It used to be the Florida Cracker restaurant out there on 100. Well, it's not called that anymore, but you turn right there, make a left-hand turn, and you go down about a mile and a half, 2 miles. It's on the right-hand side, and they have all their signs out there. But we have a wonderful time. They do different fundraisers that helps with veterans. It's a working ranch, so all the money that they make goes back into it for the veterans.
Okay, thank you. A while ago, last year, we had a very nice man come and talk to us about Revolutionary era weapons, guns specifically, and we got to hold different ammo and stuffed paper and all that stuff. Well, he's back. I asked him to send me a short bio that I could introduce him by. He didn't come up with a lot. You can tell the kind of man he is because his very first thing expressed a love for his wife. And he said, "My name is Dave Block, and I will be with my lovely assistant and wife of 59 years.
Wow.
Pat. They live in Palm Coast, and they travel the country by RV, no tents involved. His interest in the American Revolution developed while pirating in St. Augustine. Pirates and privateers did play a significant role in gaining our independence. Everyone likes flags, and flags are a great way to tell the story of the American Revolution. If you were at the Veterans Day Parade, you'll notice that we carried many of the flags. Cherie ordered them for us. And as we looked at them, a lot of them were like, we don't know what this flag was. So today, we're going to find that out and want to welcome Dave Block and his beautiful bride.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today to share my flags of freedom. You know, everybody loves flags. Countries, states, organizations, churches, DAR has a flag. And flags are really symbols. They symbolize who we are, where we're from, what we believe in. And there were over 2,000 flags during the American Revolution, symbolizing what the patriots believed in, their commitment to a cause, their commitment to a place. So we'll take a look at some of these flags. These are some of my favorites. This is the pine tree flag. The New England white pine was a prized tree in the New England area for shipbuilding. The pine tree soon became a very positive symbol throughout the colonies. It was even used in some cases with some of the currencies. But unfortunately, by the 1700s, England had run out of trees. So good old King George III enacted a law forbidding the colonists to harvest any pine tree larger than 12 inches in diameter. It didn't set very well with the colonists, and soon the pine tree became a symbol of discontent and protest. The law really wasn't enforced that much until 1766, when there was a new governor appointed in New Hampshire. He was determined to enforce the law and enacted fines for anybody that they caught harvesting the trees. Well, everybody paid their fines except for one community. There was a mill in Weir, New Hampshire, that refused to pay the fines. So the governor sent the sheriff and a deputy out to arrest the mill owner. Well, that didn't go so well. The community got together and flogged the sheriff and his deputy with pine tree branches and ran them out of town. So it didn't work out very well. This is an ironic flag right here. Very ironic. This began as a political cartoon published in the Pennsylvania Gazette by Benjamin Franklin. At the beginning of the French and Indian War in 1754, the colonies were divided on if they were going to support England in fighting the French and Indian War. So Benjamin Franklin published this in the Gazette to unite the colonies with England against the French. Now later, the irony is, this same symbol was used to unite the colonies against England.
The initials are for the different states.
Pardon me?
The initials are for the different states, part of the.
Yes. Well, actually, there's not 13 colonies on here because they kind of lumped the New England area into one. So you won't see 13 colonies. There's I believe 9 segments on here. Well, in 1765, to pay for the French and Indian War, both King George and Parliament enacted the Stamp Act. A group of businessmen in Boston got together, secretly together, and to protest the Stamp Act, they formed the Liberty Tree to protest the Stamp Act. Eventually, they got it repealed, and the Stamp Act was eliminated in 1766. But England got their way. They chopped down the Liberty Tree in Boston Common. Well, even though they had repealed the Stamp Act, old King George and the Parliament continued to enact acts after acts, which riled up the colonists. Some of them got real riled up, guys like John Adams, John Hancock, or Sam Adams, excuse me, John Hancock, Paul Revere, Dr. Joseph Warren. And they kind of liked that idea of the Liberty Tree and so on, so they hooked up with the Boston Nine and became known as the Sons of Liberty. Now, liberty poles, liberty trees started popping up all over the colonies, and one of the particularly active organizations was the Sons in New York. And they kept putting up liberty poles, protesting all the different acts. The troops would continue to chop them down, so they put one up with iron bands around it. Well, the troops blew that one up, so that got really riled up and led to the Golden Hills riot in 1770, where a mob gathered around some troops. They drew their bayonets and slashed their way through. No one was killed, but some consider that really the first battle of the American Revolution. It was a couple months later, another mob gathered in Boston, and there 5 people were killed. Became known as the Boston Massacre. Well, things continue to get riled up. Another act that was enacted by old King George was the Tea Act. Well, we know what happened there. Then came the Boston Port Act, along with others, became known as the Intolerable Acts by the colonists. And on April 19th, things came to a head. We had the Lexington Concord incident that shot heard around the world. This is the Forester flag, carried by Samuel Forester, and bear with me here, the Minutemen of Manchester, Massachusetts Militia. Maybe. After Lexington and Concord, Lieutenant Samuel Forester retrieved the flag, took it back. It stayed in the Forester family for about 150 years, was finally auctioned off to benefit the Heritage Flag Foundation. I made this, I wasn't able to buy it. It sold for an undisclosed amount of about $1 to $3 million to an undisclosed person. But today, they estimate that there's about 30 original flags still in existence from the Revolution period. This is one of them. And they feel that the flag was made by cutting the Union Jack off of the British red ensign. And then they took the white material from the Union Jack, cut it up and put it on, 7 on one side and 6 on the other, signifying the 13 colonies. Now this happens to be another flag that is still in existence. It's the Bedford flag. This was carried by the Bedford militia at Concord. It's a very unusual flag. It's considered the oldest existing flag. This is another flag that still exists. Considered the oldest existing flag from the colonies. They believe it was used as early as 1720. And used during the French and Indian War, and was carried by Samuel Page at Concord. Been carried by his father, his grandfather, previous to him. He took it back to the Page farm after the Battle of Concord, where it stayed until I believe it was 1865, when Cyrus Page donated it to the Bedford Public Library. The flag is still there for everybody to see. It's pretty much the same as it was then, with one exception. It originally had gold fringe, or a silver fringe on it. But in the early 1800s, Samuel's youngest daughter, Ruhama, took the fringe off for a party dress. Nice.
Where's the party dress?
So it's unusual in that it is one of the few flags that's painted on both sides. And it was examined, and the actual gold on the flag was made with gold leaf paint, and the silver was made with a silver paint.
What do the words mean?
Victory or death. They didn't mess around. Joint or win or die. Well, after Lexington and Concord, the British scurried back to Boston, and the Patriots surrounded Boston and Cambridge and locked the British in, landlocked the British in. Finding out that they were going to break out, so to speak, the British, the Patriots started fortifying both Bunker Hill and Breed's Hill. Actually, Breed's Hill was more where the battle was fought than Bunker Hill. It was a little bit closer to Boston. The flag was not necessarily flown, even though it's considered the Bunker Hill flag. No one thinks that the blue flag was flown. It was probably red. But in a picture drawn of the battle by John Trumbull, who was kind of the paparazzi of the period, it went to the printer, and the printer mistakenly colored it blue rather than red. Well, after Lexington and Concord happened, the Congress got together for a second time and argued back and forth whether they were going to go to war with one of the most powerful countries in the world at the time, most powerful army and navy, and we didn't even have one. But we did have some Minutemen, and they finally decided that we were already at war, so they better make it official. And on June 15th, 2 days before Bunker Hill, they appointed General Washington, George Washington, as the new commander-in-chief of the Continental Army, and sent him out to find one. It's not necessarily, there's some people that argue that this was not his flag, his headquarters flag, but there was actual samples of this found at Valley Forge. Well, when Washington arrived in Cambridge to take over his new Continental Army, a ragtag group of farmers and businessmen and lawyers and doctors, he observed the shipping coming into Boston Harbor supplying all the troops, the British troops. He decided that we needed to have a navy to stop this. Well, Congress wasn't about to start a navy at that point, so he commissioned some out-of-work fishing boats from the Marblehead area, just adjacent to Boston, and they armored them with some armament, but they weren't supposed to be warships, but they were supposed to commandeer the shipping coming into Boston Harbor, which was supplying all the troops there. In fact, the first boat, the Hannah, some say that he paid for out of his own funds. And the most successful captain of there was a fleet of 8 total, and one of the most successful captains of one of the ships was John Manley, who posed as a pilot boat outside of Boston Harbor, and when he saw a ship come close, he would send a boat of Marines over, armed Marines. They would board the ship and take it over without ever firing a shot. And he was the most successful captain of that.
So that's the Washington Scooters flag.
Now this one you probably recognize. And everybody knows about Lexington, Concord, and Bunker Hill. Not many people know about the Battle of Great Bridge. And the battle was one of the early battles where the Patriots took on the British Grenadiers at Great Bridge. They soundly defeated the British with only one minor thumb injury to the Patriots, and sent Governor Dinwiddie scurrying back to his boat in Norfolk Harbor.
And yeah, we have a
Called
county
Pepper Minuteman flag.
Dinwiddie County.
And we have the Moultrie flag. Now this was designed by Colonel William Moultrie. He was assigned to kick the British out of Fort Johnson on James Island at the entrance of Charleston Harbor. The British got word of it and actually left before he was able to do that, but he then planted this above Fort James. Well, to further secure the harbor, he assigned his troops to build a fort on Sullivan Island, which they built out of palmetto logs and sand. Well, it wasn't too much later that the British came back to take over Charleston. They sent 10 warships to get them out of there. Had over 300 cannons between the 10 warships. After a day-long battle, they basically weren't able to penetrate the fort because the cannonballs would basically bounce off the palmetto logs as opposed to break it down. So they abandoned and sailed back to New York. One of the interesting things about this this flag is during the battle, the flag was knocked over by a cannonball. And a young patriot by the name of William Jasper ran out and replanted the flag. And for that, he was offered a officer's commission, and he turned it down because he said he wasn't worthy. He couldn't read or write. And this is the Dancy flag. A little bit unusual. Don't see too many green. This is another flag that's still in existence. And it's at the flag of the Museum of the American Revolution in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. It was actually captured by a British captain by the name of William Dancy. He took it back to England at the end of the war. It was captured from a Delaware militia unit in a skirmish between the Battle of Pooch's Bridge in Delaware and Brandywine. And it remained in England for about 150 years, something like that, and was eventually auctioned off, and the Historical Society of Delaware ended up winning the auction, and it came back, and sometimes it's displayed at the Historical Society in Delaware, and other times at the Museum of the American Revolution in Philadelphia.
Yeah, we have a Dancy here that owned a lot of land out in Orange Mills. We had a lumber mill out there.
Now, Saratoga. I was trying to find a flag from Saratoga, one of the most important battles during the Revolution. As a result of Saratoga, the French did side with us, but I couldn't find one. We went to Saratoga and was touring Freeman's Farm, which is where one of the battles was. And there was a kind of a squarish flag like this. And I asked one of the docents what that was from. And they said, well, the Patriots, of course, didn't have readily access to flags or anything back then. So they took the Grand Union flag, which was the 13 stripes with the Union Jack and the canton. They cut the Union Jack off and made us wear a flag. Now, that's pretty enterprising. Well, these enterprising patriots also defeated the British. And for the first time in world history, the British surrendered to a foreign country. Yeah. So,
To their former citizens.
and no revolution story would be good without talking about John Paul Jones. This is known as the Serapis flag. John Paul Jones was aboard the Bonhomme Richard, the coast of England, and started battling the British warship, the Serapis. Well, it was a long, protracted battle, and it ended up with hand-to-hand combat on the deck of the ships. And the Serapis was finally surrendered to John Paul Jones. Later, the Bonhomme Richard sank because the mast had been blown off, not by the Serapis or a British ship, but by one of his own ships, the Alliance. And so eventually the Bonhomme Richard sank. John Paul and crew then boarded the Serapis, and they sailed, which was badly damaged, they sailed it to the Dutch port of Trexel for repairs. Well, the British were irate that he was flying a flag without sailing a vessel of theirs without a ensign on it. So they demanded it back. Well, Benjamin Franklin was in France at the time, so he hurriedly sent the Dutch a description of our flag. And this is what the Dutch came up with. So anyway, this was put on the Serapis, and the Serapis flag sailed eventually for its new home port of the United States. Another decisive battle in the Revolution. The war basically had come to pretty much a stalemate in the north, so England started devoting more time to the south and was basically taking over the south. First Charleston, they went back to Charleston, and this time they succeeded. Next they took Camden and Waxhaws, a number of places in the south. General Gates was in charge and was finally dismissed by General Washington after the fall of Camden, and he sent Nathaniel Greene down to the south to take command of the Southern Army. Nathaniel Greene was one of the most favored and best generals under General Washington. He went down, and the tide started to turn within a very short time. First Kings Mountain, then Cowpens, and a number of others, leading up to the Guilford Courthouse in Guilford County, North Carolina. A long, heated battle that basically the Patriots lost. General Greene's philosophy was you fight and retreat to fight yet another day. And the losses were so heavy by Cornwallis and his army. He lost a good portion of his army and most of his provisions, so he hightailed it for Yorktown. Well, the rest is history. Yorktown, General Cornwallis surrendered to Washington and Lafayette, and it was basically pretty much the end of the war. There were still skirmishes and battles, some of them at sea, but for the most part, the war was over in 1781. And in 1783, it was finalized with John Adams and John Jay and Benjamin Franklin signing the formal Treaty of Paris to end the war. Now, if you have enough time, if I get out of the flags, if you have enough time, I've got a few more to share with you. This was the first flag of the United States. It's called the Grand Union. And what they did is they took the British Red Ensign, which was the Union Jack and solid red flag, and they added the white stripes to it to signify the 13 colonies. And the reason they did that is there were still people in Congress that felt we were going to be able to mend our ways with England. So they came up with the Union Jack. The story goes that, the story goes that General Washington raised this flag on January 1st, 1776 in Cambridge, and immediately took it down because the British took it as a surrender flag. So, that didn't work out very well. We got one here, let me get that folded out, and one here. Now, most everybody knows this flag right here, the Betsy Ross flag, right? Not many people know this one, which is the Francis Hopkinson flag. Now, the story of Betsy Ross was pretty good, but it was a story that was brought to light about 100 years later by Betsy Ross's grandson. It was a great story about the number of points on the star and how she met with General Washington. Well, during that time frame, General Washington was out in his field getting his butt kicked by the Brits. This flag is designed by Francis Hopkinson. He was at the time one of the congressmen, Continental Congressmen. He was the commissioner of the Navy. He designed many of the seals for the new country, including this one. And again, John Paul Jones comes into the picture. He sailed with this on one of his ships. And the interesting thing is there's no record of anything with Betsy Ross. And there is an actual bill in existence today from Francis Hopkinson that he presented to the Continental Congress. And it was for a half cask of public wine. And he was never paid. And one last one. Now, you may notice something a little bit different about this. This is one flag that has 15 stripes and 15 stars. Became known as the Star-Spangled Banner. Now, people know Betsy Ross, and some people know Francis Hopkinson. Very few people know Mary Pickersgill. Well, she's the one that made this flag. During the War of 1812, Fort McHenry in Baltimore knew that the British were going to be coming up and attacking them shortly. So the commander of Fort McHenry ordered this flag to be built. Now, by that time, Vermont and Kentucky had been admitted to the Union. So we have the 15 stars and stripes for the two additional ones. There had been actually 3 more that had been admitted. I think Louisiana and I forget which other ones, but they had been admitted, but they didn't do anything because they figured if they kept adding stripes and stars, they'd end up with a pinstripe flag. So this is the flag that was flown over Fort McHenry during the bombardment during the War of 1812. Now, the commander wanted a large flag because he wanted the British to see it when they came up the river. So Mary made the original flag 30 feet by 42 feet. Fortunately, she made a smaller one because during the bombardment, through the night, it was raining, and the flag became so heavy it started bending the flagpole. And they were afraid it was going to break the flagpole, so the troops took it down and raised the smaller flag. So the smaller one was probably the one that Francis Scott's Key saw in the morning by the dawn's early light.
That's really neat.
How many people know that Virginia went all the way to the Mississippi River and included, of course, West Virginia? Kentucky was a county, as well as Ohio and Indiana.
Yes.
If you've not been to Kings Mountain, and that's one of the closer ones to get to in North Carolina, amazing. And there's a walking path that goes around, and they held the British to, for a very, very long time. And then the Kentucky Mountain Men, they came in and backed them up.
What's the significance? Some flags have varying amounts of points on the stars.
There was a lot of confusion during the time. Other flags just represent a militia unit. And it wasn't until really Congress had enacted the Flag Act on June 15th of 1777 that there was a specific rule for what the flags should be. And even then, there was a lot of variation in the flags, the stars and the colors, because, we didn't have the internet back then. And, things got a little bit confused, word of mouth, as in Ben's description of the flag for the Dutch and so on. So, yeah, it's... There's a lot of interesting stuff that you can find out when you start looking into the flags of the Revolution.
And the blue dyes were very expensive back then.
Indigo is very expensive.
So thank you very much.
Oh, yeah, that was such a good,
Yes.
Mr. and Mrs. Black, we thank you very much for bringing your knowledge and educating us.
Yes.
This has been fascinating.
yeah, definitely.
I have a number of photos of the tree, the ornaments, some of the things that I did for DAR and over at Flybuck. So if anybody would like, or I could send it to you if I just have ideas.
She has everybody's phone
Thank you.
number.
Have my email address.
I'll come up there and get it squared away.
Are we adjourned? Are we adjourned? Are we adjourned?